On March 3, 1876, Rebecca Crouch was making soap in her backyard in Bath County, Kentucky, when chunks of raw meat began falling from a perfectly clear sky. And what happened next would baffle scientists for over a century. The crimson flesh dropped in irregular pieces, some as large as 4 inches square, covering an area roughly 100 yards long and 50 yards wide around her modest farmhouse. Rebecca Crouch watched in horror as the grotesque precipitation continued for several minutes, coating her property in what appeared to be fresh animal tissue. Word of the bizarre phenomenon spread quickly through the rural Kentucky community, drawing crowds of curious onlookers and self-appointed investigators. 2 brave locals, who claimed the meat appeared fresh and edible, actually tasted the mysterious substance, describing it as either lamb or deer. Their reckless sampling would later provide crucial evidence that deepened the mystery rather than solved it. The Kentucky meat shower, as newspapers dubbed it, attracted the attention of prominent scientists from across the region. Dr. A. Mead Edwards, a respected Newark physician, obtained samples and conducted the first systematic analysis. Under his microscope, the tissue revealed muscle fibers, suggesting mammalian origin, but he couldn't identify the specific animal. His findings only intensified the growing scientific debate about what could possibly cause meat to rain from an empty sky. Multiple theories emerged from the scientific community, each more unsettling than the last. Some proposed that a flock of buzzards had simultaneously vomited while flying overhead, a behavior known as defensive regurgitation when startled. Others suggested a violent whirlwind had lifted carcasses from a distant location and deposited them over Bath County. But these explanations raised more questions than they answered. Why was there no blood on the ground? Why did witnesses report no unusual weather conditions? And most disturbingly, why did some tissue samples contain what appeared to be human lung tissue? The most chilling analysis came from Dr. Alan McLean Hamilton, who examined samples under higher magnification. His microscopic investigation revealed tissue consistent with human infant lung material mixed with animal flesh, a discovery that sent shockwaves through the scientific community and local residents alike. The implications were too horrifying to fully contemplate. Had human remains somehow become part of this supernatural precipitation? Newspapers across America picked up the story, with the New York Times publishing detailed accounts that captivated readers nationwide. The Scientific American devoted extensive coverage to the phenomenon, acknowledging that conventional meteorology offered no satisfactory explanation. Local residents began reporting strange dreams and an unsettling atmosphere that seemed to linger over Bath County long after the last pieces of flesh had been cleared away. As winter turned to spring in 1876, the mystery deepened when similar, though smaller, meat showers were reported in nearby counties. Each incident followed the same disturbing pattern: clear skies, no visible source, and fresh tissue that defied explanation. Scientists who had initially dismissed the first report as rural folklore found themselves confronting mounting evidence of something that challenged the very foundations of natural law. But the Kentucky meat shower was only the beginning of a series of inexplicable events that would plague humanity across centuries, each one revealing that our understanding of the natural world might be far more fragile than we ever dared to imagine. We explore the world's greatest unsolved mysteries. If that sounds like your kind of content, join our community by subscribing below so we can investigate these cases together.
In July 1518, a woman named Frau Trophäa stepped into the narrow streets of Strasbourg and began to dance. And within days, hundreds of people would join her in a frenzied, unstoppable dance that would kill dozens and terrify an entire city. What started as one woman's peculiar behavior in the Alsatian city would escalate into one of history's most documented yet inexplicable mass hysteria events, leaving medieval physicians, religious leaders, and modern scientists equally baffled. Frau Trophaea danced alone for 6 straight days, her feet bleeding, her body convulsing in rhythmic spasms that seemed beyond her control. Local authorities and her family pleaded with her to stop, but she appeared unable to cease the relentless movement that consumed her every waking moment. By the end of the first week, 34 other residents had joined her in the streets, their bodies moving in the same compulsive, violent dance that showed no signs of ending. The city council, faced with an unprecedented crisis, consulted local physicians who diagnosed the outbreak as hot blood caused by astrological influences. In a decision that would prove catastrophically wrong, they prescribed more dancing as the cure. Professional musicians were hired, a wooden stage was constructed in the town square, and strong men were employed to keep the dancers moving, believing that the afflicted needed to dance it out of their systems. The prescribed remedy backfired spectacularly. Within weeks, the number of compulsive dancers swelled to approximately 400 people. Eyewitness accounts describe scenes of absolute horror. Men, women, and children writhing in the streets, their clothes torn, their feet raw and bleeding, their faces contorted in expressions of agony and terror. Many collapsed from exhaustion, their hearts giving out from the relentless physical strain, while others seemed possessed by an invisible force that controlled their every movement. Chronicle records from the period, maintained by local monks and city officials, document that dozens of dancers died from heart attacks, strokes, and sheer exhaustion. The city council, realizing their error, banned all music and dancing, removing the stage and dismissing the musicians. But the dancing continued, suggesting that whatever force drove these people had nothing to do with external rhythm or musical encouragement. Religious authorities declared the outbreak a divine punishment, organizing prayer sessions and pilgrimages to appease what they believed was supernatural wrath. The dancers were taken to a shrine dedicated to Saint Vitus, the patron saint of dancers, where priests performed exorcisms and holy water was liberally applied. Remarkably, contemporary accounts suggest that some dancers did find relief at the shrine, though whether through divine intervention or psychological release remains unclear. Modern medical historians have proposed various theories: ergot poisoning from contaminated grain, mass psychogenic illness triggered by social stress, or even a form of encephalitis. However, none of these explanations fully account for the specific symptoms, the duration of the outbreak, or why it affected such a large, diverse population simultaneously. The fact that similar dancing plagues had been reported across Europe throughout the medieval period only deepens the mystery. As autumn approached Strasbourg in 1518, the dancing plague gradually subsided, leaving behind traumatized survivors, dozens of corpses, and a city forever changed. But this wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a disturbing pattern of unexplainable phenomena that would continue to manifest across the globe, challenging everything we thought we knew about human behavior and the mysterious forces that govern our world. At 7:17 a.m. on June 30th, 1908, something exploded over the remote Tunguska region of Siberia with the force of 1,000 Hiroshima bombs, flattening 80 million trees across 2,000 square kilometers and creating seismic waves that circled the Earth twice, yet leaving behind no crater and no definitive explanation for what caused the most powerful explosion in recorded human history. The blast was so intense that witnesses reported seeing a pillar of fire reaching into the heavens, followed by a mushroom cloud that rose miles into the atmosphere, 19 years before humanity would witness its first nuclear weapon. Semyon Semenov, a farmer sitting on his porch 40 miles from the epicenter, described the terrifying moment. The sky split in two, and fire appeared high and wide over the forest. At that moment, I became so hot that I couldn't bear it, as if my shirt was on fire. The heat wave was followed by a shock wave so powerful, it knocked him unconscious and shattered windows and buildings hundreds of miles away. Across Europe, the night sky glowed so brightly that people could read newspapers by the strange luminescence for 3 consecutive nights. What makes the Tunguska event even more disturbing is what investigators didn't find when they finally reached the remote location decades later. Despite an explosion that registered on seismographs worldwide and was heard 600 miles away, there was no impact crater, no meteorite fragments, and no conventional evidence of what could have caused such devastating destruction. The pattern of fallen trees pointed radially outward from ground zero, suggesting an aerial explosion. But of what? The first scientific expedition to reach Tunguska didn't arrive until 1927, led by Soviet mineralogist Leonid Kulik. What his team discovered defied all expectations. At the center of the devastation, trees remained standing but were stripped bare of branches and bark, like massive telephone poles extending toward the sky. Surrounding this eerie forest of skeletal trunks, millions of trees lay flattened in a perfect butterfly pattern that could only have been created by an explosion occurring several miles above the ground. Kulik's team found microscopic metallic spheres scattered throughout the blast zone, but their composition matched no known meteorite material. Stranger still, the indigenous Evenki people of the region reported unusual phenomena for years after the event. Animals with abnormal mutations, accelerated plant growth in certain areas, and mysterious illnesses affecting both humans and livestock. These accounts would later eerily parallel reports from nuclear test sites decades before atomic weapons existed. Soviet scientists proposed numerous theories over the decades: a comet that completely vaporized upon atmospheric entry, an antimatter collision, a black hole passing through Earth, or even a natural nuclear explosion caused by deuterium fusion. Each theory had fatal flaws. Comets leave debris. Antimatter would have created a far larger explosion. Black holes would have exited through the opposite side of the planet. Recent investigations using advanced satellite imagery and computer modeling have only deepened the mystery. The blast patterns suggest multiple explosions occurring in sequence, not a single impact. Soil samples continue to reveal unusual isotopic signatures that don't match any known terrestrial or extraterrestrial materials. Most unsettling of all, tree ring analysis from the surrounding forest shows that growth rates increased dramatically after 1908, as if the mysterious explosion somehow enhanced the biological processes of the surviving vegetation. Over a century later, the Tunguska event remains one of our planet's greatest unsolved mysteries, a reminder that even in our age of advanced science, there are forces at work that continue to defy human understanding. For over 3 decades, residents of Taos, New Mexico have been tormented by a persistent, low-frequency humming sound that only certain people can hear. And those who do describe it as so maddening that some have contemplated suicide just to make it stop. This isn't urban legend or mass hysteria. It's a documented phenomenon that has baffled acoustic engineers, neurologists, and government investigators who have spent millions of dollars trying to identify the source of what locals call the hum. Dr. Joe Mullins, a professor emeritus of engineering at the University of New Mexico, first brought scientific attention to the Taos Hum in the early 1990s when he began receiving desperate calls from residents describing an inescapable droning sound. What made their reports particularly disturbing was the consistency. The sound was always described as a low-frequency hum, similar to a diesel engine idling in the distance, that was more noticeable at night and seemed to penetrate walls, earplugs, and any attempt to escape it. The phenomenon became so disruptive that in 1993, a team of investigators from Los Alamos National Laboratory, Phillips Laboratory, the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, and other government agencies launched an extensive study. They deployed sensitive acoustic monitoring equipment throughout the Taos area and conducted detailed interviews with affected residents. Their findings were deeply unsettling. While the equipment detected no unusual sounds, roughly 2% of the population, dubbed hearers, continued to report the maddening hum. What makes the Taos Hum particularly chilling is the psychological impact on those who experience it. Katie Jacks, a longtime Taos resident, described her ordeal to investigators. Quote, "It's like having a diesel truck parked outside your bedroom window running all night, every night. You can't concentrate, you can't sleep, you can't escape it. I've considered moving away from a place I've loved for 20 years just to find peace." Some hearers report that the sound becomes more intense during periods of stress or illness, suggesting a possible connection to individual physiology. The mystery deepened when similar hums began being reported worldwide in Bristol, England, Bondi Beach, Australia, and dozens of other locations. Each outbreak followed the same disturbing pattern: a small percentage of the population affected, no identifiable external source, and devastating psychological effects on those who heard it. This global nature suggested either a widespread environmental cause or something far more mysterious about human perception itself. Scientists have proposed numerous theories to explain the phenomenon: ultra-low frequency sound waves from geological activity, electromagnetic radiation from power lines or radio transmitters, or even a form of tinnitus triggered by environmental factors. However, none of these explanations account for why the hum affects only certain individuals or why it occurs in geographically diverse locations with different geological and technological characteristics. Perhaps most disturbing are recent reports from hearers who claim the hum is changing, becoming more complex, incorporating multiple tones, or even seeming to respond to their attention. Dr. Glenn McPherson, who maintains the World Hum Map and Database, has documented over 10,000 reports globally, with new cases emerging regularly. His research suggests that the phenomenon may be increasing in frequency and intensity. As night falls over Taos, a small percentage of its residents will once again endure the torment of an inexplicable sound that science cannot detect, cannot explain, and cannot silence. A reminder that there are aspects of human experience that remain completely beyond our understanding, driving people to the edge of sanity with nothing more than an invisible, inescapable hum. In August 1963, British pilot Roger Jennison was flying through a thunderstorm when a glowing sphere of electricity the size of a basketball materialized inside his aircraft's sealed cabin, rolled down the aisle like a living entity, passed harmlessly through his body, and vanished through the metal fuselage, leaving behind no damage but challenging every known law of physics. This encounter with ball lightning, one of nature's most enigmatic phenomena, represents just one of thousands of documented cases that continue to baffle scientists who struggle to explain how these luminous orbs can exist at all. Ball lightning appears as spherical masses of light, typically ranging from golf ball to basketball size, that float through the air with apparent intelligence and purpose. Witnesses consistently describe these phenomena as glowing orbs that can pass through solid matter, walls, windows, even aircraft fuselage, without leaving any trace of their passage. Unlike regular lightning, which lasts milliseconds, ball lightning can persist for minutes, moving at varying speeds and sometimes appearing to respond to the presence of observers. This phenomenon gained serious scientific attention when Nobel Prize winner Niels Bohr reported his own encounter with ball lightning during a lecture at Princeton University in 1956. Bohr described watching a luminous sphere drift across the lecture hall, hover near the ceiling, and then simply fade away. His account, backed by dozens of witnesses, forced the scientific community to acknowledge that ball lightning was more than folklore or optical illusion. One of the most disturbing documented cases occurred in 1638 at a church in Widecombe-in-the-Moor, Devon, England. During a violent thunderstorm, witnesses reported that a massive fireball crashed through the church roof, killing 4 people and injuring 60 others. The sphere allegedly moved through the congregation with destructive purpose, leaving behind the smell of sulfur and scorch marks that defied explanation. Contemporary accounts describe the orb as having an almost malevolent intelligence, targeting specific individuals while leaving others untouched. Modern attempts to recreate ball lightning in laboratory settings have produced mixed results. Russian scientist Pyotr Kapitsa managed to generate similar-looking phenomena using microwave radiation, but his artificial creations lasted only fractions of a second, nothing like the persistent orbs reported in nature. More recent experiments at Brazil's Federal University of Pernambuco accidentally created ball lightning-like objects during electrical discharge experiments, but these laboratory versions behaved differently from eyewitness accounts. What makes ball lightning particularly unsettling is its apparent ability to violate fundamental principles. How can a plasma maintain its coherent structure without a containing magnetic field? How can it pass through solid matter without interaction? Why do some encounters result in electrical equipment damage while others leave no trace? The energy required to maintain such a phenomenon should dissipate almost immediately, yet documented cases describe ball lightning persisting for minutes. Recent theories propose exotic explanations, silicon nanoparticles created by lightning strikes that somehow maintain luminosity, microscopic black holes that create localized electromagnetic disturbances, or even quantum effects that allow temporary violations of thermodynamic laws. Each theory attempts to explain some aspects of ball lightning while failing to account for others. As thunderstorms continue to rage across our planet, these mysterious electric phantoms persist in their dance between the possible and impossible, reminding us that even our most advanced understanding of physics may be incomplete when confronted with phenomena that refuse to obey the rules we thought governed our universe. On the morning of February 9, 1855, the residents of South Devon, England, awoke to discover that something had walked through their villages during the night, leaving behind a trail of cloven hoofprints in the snow that stretched for over 100 miles through towns, over rooftops, across rivers, and through impossible spaces where no earthly creature could have traveled. What they found that morning would become known as the Devil's Footprints, and after nearly 2 centuries of investigation, science still cannot explain what left those marks or how it defied the very laws of physics to create them. The footprints appeared overnight across more than 30 locations throughout South Devon, following a single, unbroken trail that passed through Exmouth, Topsham, Limpstone, Exford, Tangmouth, and Dawlish. Each print measured exactly 4 inches long and 2.75 inches wide, shaped like a cloven hoof, but pressed deeper into the snow than any known animal could create. Most unsettling was the perfect uniformity. Every single print was identical in size, depth, and spacing, as if made by the same foot taking measured steps across an impossible distance. Reverend H.T. Ellicombe of Kleist St. George meticulously documented the phenomenon, noting that the trail passed through areas that would have been physically impossible for any terrestrial creature to navigate. The prints crossed the Exe estuary, a body of water 2 miles wide, continuing on the opposite shore with the same precise spacing and depth. They appeared on rooftops 14 feet high, through narrow passages only 4 inches wide, and over haystacks where no creature could have gained purchase. Local residents formed search parties to follow the mysterious trail, but what they discovered only deepened their terror. In several locations, the prints led directly to solid walls and then resumed on the opposite side, as if whatever created them had passed through stone and mortar without disturbing a single brick. At one cottage, the prints approached the front door, circled the building 3 times, and then led straight through a 6-inch gap under a door, emerging on the other side to continue their inexplicable journey. The Times of London dispatched investigators who confirmed the phenomenon's authenticity, publishing detailed accounts that sparked nationwide debate. Naturalists proposed various explanations: a hopping mouse, escaped kangaroo, or unknown bird species. However, each theory crumbled under scrutiny. The prints showed no claw marks, no variation in gait, and no biological irregularities that would characterize any known animal. The perfectly straight line of travel, unbroken across rivers and buildings, defied animal behavior entirely. Perhaps most chilling were the reports from residents who claimed to hear sounds during the night. Not footsteps, but a rhythmic tapping that seemed to come from above their houses. Several witnesses reported that their dogs had cowered indoors, whimpering in terror, refusing to venture outside even when coaxed. Livestock throughout the region showed signs of extreme distress, with horses refusing to cross areas where the prints had appeared. As investigators from across Europe arrived to study the phenomenon, the snow began to melt, erasing the physical evidence, but not the memory of what had occurred. The Devil's Footprints joined the Kentucky meat shower, the Dancing Plague, the Tunguska explosion, the Taos Hum, and ball lightning as yet another reminder that our world harbors mysteries that transcend scientific understanding. These 6 phenomena, separated by centuries and continents, share a common thread. They reveal that reality itself may be far stranger and more fragile than we dare to imagine. In our age of advanced technology and scientific certainty, these unexplained events persist as humbling reminders that some mysteries may forever dance just beyond the reach of human comprehension, leaving us to wonder what other impossible truths await discovery in the shadows of our supposedly rational world.